Anna Gordy was 40 years old when she met Marvin Gay Jr. She had run a photography concession at the Flame Show Bar in Detroit for years, had seen enough performers come through that room to know the difference between someone with talent and someone with something else. Talent was common. The something else was not. She recognized it in Marvin immediately. What she did with that recognition, and what it cost her, and what she built from it, and how it ended, is a story that almost always gets told as Marvin's story. It was hers first. Anna Gordy was Berry Gordy's older sister. That is the frame most people apply to her, which is the frame that most consistently misrepresents her. She was not a peripheral figure in the Gordy family's rise. She was one of its architects. Before Berry had built Motown, Anna had built a career in the Detroit music scene on her own terms. Observant, practical, with an eye for what worked and what did not. She understood the economics of entertainment. She understood the gap between a performer and a star. The Gordy family had a record label before Motown, Anna Records, which Anna ran with her sister Gwen and Harvey Fuqua. When that label merged into what became Motown, Anna was part of the institutional fabric of the company from its earliest days. She was not simply Berry's sister. She was present, operational, and consequential. Marvin Gay Jr. came into this world in 960, through Harvey Fuqua, through the Moonglows, through the specific pathway that Anna and Gwen had helped construct by marrying into the label's inner circle. When Anna met Marvin, the business and the personal were already wound together in ways that neither of them would ever fully separate. She was 17 years older. He was 21. She was composed and authoritative. He was gifted and unformed. The attraction was real. The asymmetry was also real. Both things were true simultaneously, and neither disappeared over 15 years of marriage. They married in 1963. By then, Marvin had his first records on the charts. By then, the Motown machine was running at a velocity that would reshape American popular music for the following decade. Anna's position in the marriage was complicated by her position in the family. She was simultaneously his wife and his label's proprietor's sister, which meant that every creative dispute Marvin had with Motown carried a domestic dimension, and every domestic tension carried a professional one. The two spheres were never separate. People who knew them in the middle years described the dynamic with careful language. Anna was protective of Marvin in the way that someone is protective of something they have invested in, which is not the same as the way someone is protective of something they simply love, though the two can coexist. She believed in him. She also had opinions about how he should be deploying his talent, and those opinions did not always align with his own. Marvin, who spent his career fighting the constraints of the Motown commercial model, was fighting those constraints in his own home as well as in the studio. The marriage began to come apart in the late 960s. The Tammy Terrell period, the grief, the withdrawal, the years of erratic behavior that followed her death, tested something in the marriage that had already been under pressure. Marvin's drug use escalated. His financial management was chronically chaotic. His infidelities, which were not secret to anyone paying attention, added to a weight that the relationship was not structured to support. What Anna did during this period has been described differently by different people, which is usually the case when a woman's role in a man's deterioration gets examined publicly. Some accounts describe her as steadying, holding the household together while he cycled through his various crises. Others describe the Gordy family presence, through Anna, through the label, through Berry's involvement in Marvin's career, as a kind of pressure that contributed to the conditions in which Marvin struggled. Both versions capture something real. Neither captures the whole of it. The formal separation came in the mid-1970s. The divorce proceedings were contentious and prolonged. Two people who had been professionally and personally entangled for more than a decade, trying to separate those entanglements in a legal framework that was not designed for their specific complexity. Anna's position was straightforward. She had been his wife, had supported his career, had maintained the household through years in which he was frequently not functional, and she was entitled to fair compensation for those years. The settlement that emerged, the royalty arrangement from his next album, was unusual enough that it entered the historical record. What Anna received from Hear My Dear in financial terms is not fully documented. What she received in another sense, a double album addressing the marriage in full, delivered to her as a legal payment, is permanent, public, and impossible to return. Anna Gordy Gay did not speak extensively about Hear My Dear in the years following its release. She did not give interviews parsing the songs or offering her version of the events the album described. She maintained a silence that, depending on how you read it, is either the dignified restraint of someone refusing to be drawn into a public argument, or the response of someone who looked at what had been handed to her and decided that no words were adequate to the occasion. She outlived Marvin. She outlived Berry Gordy's active leadership of Motown. She outlived the era in which her family's enterprise had reshaped American popular music. She gave occasional interviews in later years, careful and measured, in which she described Marvin with something that resisted simple classification. Not bitterness, not idealization, something more honest than either. There is a version of this story that positions Anna Gordy Gay as a secondary character in Marvin Gaye's biography, the older woman who gave him access, the establishment figure he eventually outgrew, the ex-wife who received the famous album. That version is efficient and largely wrong. She was a person in her own right before he arrived, and she remained one after. What she built, what she recognized in a young man at the Flame Show Bar in 1960, and what that recognition set in motion, for him, for her, for the specific arc of a career that changed American music, is a story about her as much as it is about him. She recognized something in a room full of performers and decided it was worth her attention. Everything that followed, the marriage, the album, the settlement, the silence, came from that recognition. She was 40 years old. He was 21. She knew what she was seeing. She was right. The cost of being right about something like that, in that era, in that industry, in that family, is not something that fits cleanly into a settlement agreement or a double album. It is something you carry. Anna Gordy Gay carried it for the rest of her life, without offering the world a satisfying account of the weight.